In this video, I'm going to walk through configuring Infoblox's DNS Traffic Controller in the typical graphical user interface, as well as show how the same tasks can be accomplished using the REST API. My name is Scott Friedman, and I'm a systems engineer in Dallas, Texas. While most companies would agree that being able to intelligently deliver applications, both externally facing as well as internal, would be a worthwhile investment, most don't know how to go about putting it into practice. Infoblox's approach is taking traditional global server load balancing complexities and melding it with our ease of use, visibility, and security ecosystem. DTC makes it easy to move from a static environment, traditional name to IP mapping, to a more dynamic one where you can respond to a DNS query with an IP based on the subnet or geolocation of the resolver, or maybe some extensible attribute value in your IPAM database, all inside the same familiar interface with integrated reporting, DHCP, security, and discovery. Now, let's start in the GUI with a blank configuration. And I'm first going to go to my DNS zone, and I'm going to select the DNS records that I want to define as DTC servers. I'm going to find each individual record, and I'm going to select them one by one, and I'm going to hit Create DTC Server. And I'm going to walk through the wizard. I've got a name and an IP already, so I'm going to hit Next. Now it's going to let me define an extensible attribute. This is some value we can give an object, like building or VLAN. In my case, I'm using town, and I have a town in Dallas and a town in Paris. I'm going to define the first 3 servers in Dallas, and the 4th server will be in Paris. Once I've defined all 4 servers as DTC servers, then the next thing I'll be able to do is create a DTC pool. This is a collection of servers, maybe in each data center. I'm going to create a pool in Dallas with servers 1, 2, and 3, and a pool in Paris with server 4. I'm going to have everything go to the pool in Dallas as long as all the servers are available. Once the servers are not available, then my DNS requests will go to Paris. So I'm going to start with the Dallas pool. I'm going to define a health monitor that I'm going to use to check the servers. They could be ICMP or TCP. I'm using an SNMP one that's going to check for CPU utilization of the servers and decide which one is most available. I can define load balancing methods such as round robin, ratio, or topology. Topology lets me define based on IP, geolocation, or an extensible attribute. For this demo, I'm going to use round robin. I'm going to select the 3 servers that are in the Dallas data center. Finally, I'm going to define the extensible attribute of town as Dallas. I'm going to save this. Once I've created both the Dallas and the Paris pools, then I can create the load balance domain name. This is the name you define that we're going to receive DNS requests for and respond to. So here I'm going to define the exact URL here in the pattern that we're going to be expecting queries for. I'm going to define a load balancing method here. This is between the different pools or data centers. I'm going to use global availability. I'm then going to associate it with a DNS zone and define which records we're going to be expecting queries for. I'm then going to define the pools that are part of this LBDN. So I'm going to select both Dallas and Paris. Then finally, we can define extensible attribute. Once I save this and our service restarts, my monitors will then start monitoring the servers for SNMP checks. And based on the responses, it's going to show that the servers are up and available. And then I'll be able to use a more dynamic load balancing method to decide if I want to load balance based on CPU utilization or memory or number of connections. Moving over to the API, we've got a bunch of different things that you can use the API for to manage your entire Infoblox environment. And so a few things I want to show you is a simple task like, let's say I want to get the next available IP. So I can run this command up here, and it gives me 192.168.1.3. So now let's say I want to do something a little more advanced, like I want to create a host. And for the host, I'm going to use this name. So I have to define that here. And I'm saying I want to use the next available IP in this network. And since I knew that the IP I was going to get was 1.3, when I run this, I get a record created and it used 1.3. Now, if I want to look at doing configuration things with DNS Traffic Control, I can do a lot of the same things I showed in the last section in the GUI. For instance, I want to create a server. So if I want to create a DTC server, in this case, I'm creating one with the name of www1, the IP of 1.101, and I hit send, and it creates my server. If I want to create a pool, the same thing. I've got a pool. I'm going to create the Dallas pool, and same option. So I'm selecting global availability, but I could select round robin or anything else. I can select monitors. For this, I'm using ICMP, but we can use that SNMP monitor. And then I'm defining the servers. In this, I'm just defining server 1, but I could define 2 and 3 if I wanted to here. So if I hit send here, it created the pool. I go back over to here, and I refresh my interface. I've now got a pool and a server. Finally, let me create the LBDN. Same concept. So I've got the zone and the name, load balancing method, DNS name, and which pool I want to use. In this case, I'm only using Dallas pool, but of course I could use Paris pool. And I'm going to hit send on that. Now it created the LBDN. If I go over here and I refresh this, I'm going to get the restart because I created an LBDN. So I'm going to hit restart on this. Finally, I'm going to delete my configuration and go back to the API. And the last thing I want to do is show off an API that one of our SE managers wrote. And it talks about creating an entire DTC configuration in one API call. So all those things I just did, the server, the pool, and the LBDN creation, can all be done in a single API. So if you look here, find my 4 servers, my 2 pools, even define the topology rule set based on IP address, and I've created my LBDN with the same pools. And if I run this, hit it and let it go, and it created all of that for me. And if I go back over here and I hit refresh, everything shows up. I'll hit the restart banner and I'll let this restart. Finally, while that's restarting, I'll show that you can do the exact same thing by deleting it. So if I go here and I show the APIs, exact same thing. So I've got my server objects, my pools, my topology rule set, and my LBDN. I'll hit send on this. And just like that, everything's gone. I'm going to hit refresh here, and I get the restart banner.